Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? We have a great night in store. You know, I get an opportunity to do a bunch of things around the world of sports, but there's nothing that compares to '94. It's just, and it was really, you know, I was one of those guys who sat in that garden in the '70s, in the '80s, you know, 54 years waiting by my TV. Every possible thing that can go wrong did for a long time, if you remember those days. And then Messier, he came, and it all started coming together. So we're going to have a great night. We're really blessed, and thank you for all coming. I know it's a Friday night, and we all know in a couple hours, which we'll make sure we have everything all organized so that this will be, everybody will get to meet, take the photos, our Q&As, and you'll be able to watch the game, and hopefully we'll continue on and be back in the Garden for Game 6. Here's how it lays out. I figured it would, you know, we spend 15, 20 minutes and just figure out how this whole thing came together in '94. So we'll do Bob Gutkowski, Sam Rosen, John Davidson, Mike Keenan. You know, we got to just figure out what the masterminds were thinking. And then we'll bring in the core four, and we'll probably get a roving mic, and we may have to ask, you know, some of the warriors, you know, the Booms and the Matos, a couple questions as well. A couple people in the audience, just, you know, the team's here, by the way, quite a few of them. Adam Graves is here, Brian Leetch, Brian Noonan, Glenn Anderson, Greg Gilbert is here. Jay Wells, you don't want to go in the corner with him. Jeff Bukamu, you definitely don't want to go in the corner with. Joey Koster. You don't want to go in the corners with him. And Mark's here. Mike Richter's here. Sergey Nemchinov. Stefan Matteau is here. Yes. And then obviously Mike Keenan, John Davidson, Sam Rosen. Just a quick thing before we get started. I think it's appropriate. Alexander Karpasov, you know, he died in the plane crash last year, unable to make this reunion. I just thought that, you know, we should all just, he died in that plane crash in Russia last year, so just a moment just for him. We're going to miss him. He was a part of the Cup, no question. So we're going to miss him in this particular gathering. We're also going to miss, I'll tell you, we're going to miss Kovalov too. He couldn't make it. He's doing something abroad. We're going to miss him. And then just a small thing, Matty Lockeran, there's a whole bunch of things going on over the next couple of days. He was the operations manager for the Rangers. Basically did all the work, plane trips, travel, food. And so we're going to be doing some fundraising for him over the next couple of days. There'll be an auction on SteinerSports.com. And if you ask the guys in the lobby, they'll give you some more insight of how you can help the guys and the team. They're trying to rally behind him as well. So for now, let's bring out Sam Rosen, the voice of the Rangers, John Davidson, Bob Gutkowski, the president, former president. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And Mike Keenan. Oh, baby. Well, first thing there's a million directions here, but I have to ask Bob I got to get right to it. Bob is like, how do we get, you know, the coach? How did that happen? Because that was a little bit of that wasn't easy, getting the coach, you know. So it kind of started with Mike, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story. I think JD was involved in that. We obviously had to bring in a new coach. We had a very rough year. I had a couple of names in my mind. I was thinking Scotty Bowman, not Keenan. And JD and I had a conversation. I came out of, Lupica was doing a show on WFAN. I got in a car and I got a call from JD, and JD got a call from Mike's agent and said, Mike really is interested in getting this job. And they wanted to have a conversation with you. And I said, you know, I don't really want to do that. I think, you know, it's up to Neil. And if this is Neil's guy, then, you know, I'll support it. So tell them to give Neil a call. They were having conversations. By the time I got back, Neil was in my office, and he came down and he said, I want to hire Mike Keenan. And I said, are you sure you want to hire Mike Keenan? And he said, yes. He says, Mike's the guy that's going to be able to win the Stanley Cup, and I want to give everything we can behind it. And I may need your help to go up to Toronto, but I believe very much that Keenan is the guy. I talked to JD, because I would always talk to JD just to try and get his opinion on it. He thought Mike was the guy, and Mike wound up being the guy. And a great part of that story, though, this was before email. We were up in Toronto. We had a full-day meeting. Mike and his agent said, well, you know, let us think about it, go back to your hotel room. And I went back to my hotel room with Neil and and we were waiting for the phone call, and we got the call. And Mike's agent said that if you can come back and if you can memorialize what you guys said today on paper, Mike wants to be the coach of the New York Rangers. And we went back, and it was faxes back and forth faxes. And we finally signed a deal about 12 o'clock, 12:30 in the morning. We went back to my hotel room, and I was going to order some champagne. And Mike said, nope. We'll order 4 beers. We'll drink champagne when we win the cup. And we won the cup that
There you go.
Mike, on your side of things, I mean, you've been in the Stanley Cup 3 times prior to that.
Yes.
A lot of pressure, questions whether you could win the biggie. What made you feel like coming to New York was going to be your time?
Well, I looked at the number one guy to begin with. I'd coached in Team Canada. His name's Mark Messier. And then you look at the roster, and you have to go to the goaltender. And then you got to look for a superstar defenseman. So you got Richter and Leetch. And it's a pretty good start. Then you go to a guy like Graves, and a young star named Kovalev, and a young defenseman named Zubov. So you start to look at the ingredients. But I'll tell the New York Rangers fans a little story too about the hiring. And Bob was instrumental with Neil of getting me there, but Mr. Steiner was trying very hard to get me back to Philadelphia. And I went to have lunch with him, and he was really aggressive. Can I borrow your paper for a second? So, and Mr. Snyder has never spoken to me since. So the lunch is over. He hands me the contract. He said, sign it. I said, no, I can't sign that right now, Mr. Snyder. I've got to visit with the New York Rangers. So that's basically look at the personnel, look at the opportunity, the organization. I came from Chicago. I was used to big cities. And I thought they were poised to win. And certainly the acquisition of a number of players that are here tonight, and building the team together ended up giving us an opportunity to win.
Now, you were always like our fans' general manager, you guys. You know, you're always told it like it was, though.
No.
How did you see it up in the booth? There's a lot of things that happened during the year.
Yeah.
Were you with those trades? I mean, you know,
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I'll go back to when Mike was hired. The big thing about having a great hockey club is you have to have the right coach that can coach great hockey players and understand how you deal with great hockey. They're like thoroughbreds. They're like the best thoroughbreds. You have to be able to do it the right way to maximize to become a winner. The thing I remember most about that season was 2 stories. One of them was, with the blessing of Madison Square Garden, not only did I, with Sam, broadcast Ranger games, but I was able to go out around the league and broadcast network games all over the place, all the time. And so I'd see the other really good teams in our league play, and every time I came back, and I'd say it to Mike, and I'd say it to Colin Campbell, and I'd say it to Mark, you guys are the best team. You're the best team. I'm telling you, you got a chance to do something, you're the best team. Now, it's hard to win, and you can go back and look at all those series. That was hard. It's hard to win then, it's hard to win today. But this team was the best team, and they did win the President's Trophy and went on to win the Cup. The other one I remember, and I was thinking about this on the aircraft today, I used to go over to Rye where the team practiced, and I'd get tapes, and I'd go home and watch them to prepare for broadcasting games in the future. So I go in there one day, and I'm trying to find, I think it was Jerry Deneen, and find the tapes, and Mike says, come here, I want to talk to you. It's okay, Coach, how are you? It's about 2 in the afternoon, so we sit in Mike's office, and he starts. And we were there for 4 hours and went over the board looking at line combinations and what was needed and who he thought he could get. and he wanted just thoughts. And it was like a think tank that afternoon. And then, of course, after that, Mike and Neil got together and made some deals, which were, and it wasn't me, believe me, we just went over things. It was Mike and Neil Smith that made the deals, which really helped the team become a over-the-hump team to really go after the championship. It was quite an experience.
So the net is you traded Patrick.
No.
Just want to make sure I got that straight.
No.
Sam, how was your view? I mean, did you see this team as a winner all the way through, or?
I thought that the team, as Mike said, was poised to do good things, but don't forget the previous season, Rangers folded down the stretch, had a rough losing streak at the end of the year, didn't make the playoffs. So now with a coaching change, they were ready. They were ready to pay attention from day one. We went over to London, in the French's Mustard Cup against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a whirlwind tour, but it started there, and I think it took about a month for the players to adjust to Mike and Mike to get a handle on what he had, and then they took off. And they went on a 20-game unbeaten streak.
We won the Mustard Cup, though, I remember.
Yeah,
Just to make
absolutely. We had to beat the Leafs. So that's when the feeling came that this team had it. You knew the players were excellent players, but could they gel as a team, and they did.
I just got to ask you on a side note, because I'm such a big fan myself of when you guys were together. How much fun was it to work with John? I mean, what was it like to work in the booth together?
Yeah. It was the best. That was the key word was, let's have fun. There was nobody better. Nobody taught me more about preparing for a game than John Davidson, because he had every satellite dish, legal and illegal, that there was to have. He saw every game, and somehow I had to keep up with him, because we'd go on the air, and I had to be conversant with him, knowing what was going on around the league.
You know, it was interesting working at Madison Square Garden. It was like family. I mean that sincerely, with Sam and our wives, our friends. You grow up with, you see the kids grow up. It was like family. And then the people we worked with. When you retire as a player at 29, like I did because of knees and things, you have to find something that has been a part of all your life. And mine was hockey, and I'm going, I can't play anymore. But when we did it, our TV network became a team. You've got a producer who's like the general manager. You've got the director who's like a coach. You've got people that run tape that are like your teammates. Yeah, the whole thing. And that's what all those great years were at Madison Square Garden. We had a good team, and they allowed us, MSG Network allowed us to be a team, which was outstanding.
That's cool. Mike, you two guys had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, you love I got the Messier, the Richter, the Leetch part, but there were some parts of that team you didn't like, that you weren't satisfied with. At least that's the rumblings, you hear about.
That is true, and it wasn't that I didn't like them as players, and there was a lot of discussion about maybe trading a Monty, because there was something about a great player. When I was a general manager in Chicago, I was trying to get a Monty, but I looked around. I'd already been to the Cup in Philadelphia twice, in Chicago, and I said, as great as we're doing, this team I don't think is the team we need to win the Stanley Cup in New York. And we need to make some changes that are going to be difficult. But the thing we did is we did our homework and brought in people that we knew. Steve Larmer, and then the big trade at the trading deadline, Matteau, Noonan, McTavish.
That was a biggie.
That was a lot of changes at the
Now,
time.
who was involved with those trades? Was that you and Neil Smith and Gut, or?
Well, you want to hear the whole story about those trades?
I mean, we're all kind of. I mean,
Mike and I were
part of it.
talking about this in the back, and to me, it was that really made the Cup happen. I think that was those deals put us over the top. And we were playing well, and then we were struggling, and Neil and Mike were not communicating as well as I would like my general manager and coach to communicate. It was pretty well documented, and there was some rumors that Mike wanted to become general manager, and Neil didn't want Mike to become general manager. It became a bit of a mess. And
I
got
didn't want to be the general manager.
That's all right. Yeah, but you know the media, and I got a call the day before from Mike's agent saying,
Rob Campbell.
Rob Campbell, just wants you to know, I want to go on record saying my client doesn't believe this team is good enough to win. and he's having trouble communicating with his general manager, and he just wants you to be aware of that. I said, okay, thank you. Have him in my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're all going to get together. And I saw Neil that night and said, Neil, I'd like you in my office at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to have a meeting, you, me, and Mike, and we're going to figure out what we have to do. And we started the meeting, and I basically set the record straight, saying, Mike, you're the coach. Neil, you're the general manager. You guys are going to communicate. We have to figure out what we have to do here to win the cup. And Mike said a fascinating thing to me. He said, you know, I'm like a baker. He said, you know, I know if I need a little bit of more sugar in, you know, in the icing, what it's going to take. And I said, well, that's wonderful, but if Neil doesn't know you need sugar, how's he going to go out and get the sugar? So they started having this conversation and went back and forth, and I got up and I left about an hour into it. Went back to my office, and about 3 hours later, Neil opened up the door and said, man, that was terrific. I don't know if that was going to work, but that was terrific, and Mike and I are on the same page, and 24 hours later, they went out and made the trades together. That I called JD and said, what do you think? And he said, I think it's terrific. And that was the deal. Because of that meeting got us over the top, and I think that's why, you know, a big reason why we won the cup.
It was.
Mike, was there a hard deal there? What was the hardest part of all that? You know, was it one player you really didn't want to?
Well, first of all, the hard part is it's okay if you want to make a deal, but you got to find somebody to make a deal with. And that's the general manager's job, and that's the skill set for the general manager to find the solution somewhere that's going to be palatable. And of course, when Neil brought the names of players that had coached, had gone to the finals, that were hungry, we picked up people we were familiar with, Greg Gilbert, Stefan Matteau, and Noonan all played for Brian Noonan, played for me in Chicago.
Yep. So you knew that.
But not only that, we were getting on the timeline where we needed to have this solidified quickly and people to understand the program, if you like, quickly. And Craig McTavish certainly knew all the Oilers, the ex-Oilers, and were great leaders in their own right, and they were winners. They knew how
Glenn
to win.
Anderson, too.
I was just going to mention
Glenn
Anderson knew how to win.
That was a big addition.
Yeah.
And
Glenn was a late addition,
he
too,
and
no?
Mark had special chemistry. Adam Graves,
Yeah.
Jeff Buchan with all the other guys. Kevin Lowe. Kevin Lowe was the most interesting guy to make a comment, though. He walked in the next day after that big trade. He said, well, high risk, high reward. Here we go.
But one of the things that Mike said at that meeting was, we have to get grittier. We're not gritty enough. And he said, you're going to get seduced like you were in '92 if you don't get more grit. And I think Neil picked up on it and went out and made the trades and brought that grit that Mike was talking about. And I think you saw it in the face-offs in Game 7 and Game 6 and what McTavish did and Glenn did. So there was that grittiness that the Rangers had not had for a very long time. And through
And
Mike's
size.
direction,
We needed to be bigger.
Yeah.
We knew the Devils were a big team.
Switching subjects, Devils, Game 7. Doing that game, one of your favorite games to do, and have you ever seen a switch of emotion? You know, with the goal right at the end, and then the Matteau. I mean,
It was, in my mind, the greatest series ever played. Yeah, the most exciting and most emotionally rewarding series was Vancouver and winning the Stanley Cup. But the series against the Devils was just the greatest. You had 3 double overtime games. Rangers falling behind, losing Game 1. Coming back, winning 2 games. Game 3, a double overtime win. Stefan Matteau in double overtime winning in New Jersey. Then Games 4 and 5, the Devils win. Now it's a chance that the Rangers could lose. And we were sitting, and we weren't doing Game 6. That was at New Jersey, and at that time, we couldn't do the games in New Jersey. The Devils couldn't do the games at the Garden. And we're sitting in a box with Bob and other MSG people and John and I, and nothing is happening. The team is just not getting anything done. It's 2-0, and I'm just pacing and seeing it's all going out the window. And then Mike called the timeout and didn't say anything. And then a couple of shifts later, Kovalov scored, and then Mark took over, and the rest we all know is history. But Game 7 was the greatest, And there it was, 1-0. Mike Richter is playing as well as any goalie has ever played. The Rangers are playing great defensively. And suddenly there's a scramble, and with 7.7 seconds to go, the puck is in the net. And it's like, how did this happen? And now we go to overtime, and I'm sitting in the booth like this. And John is pacing back and forth. He looks at me, well, what's with you? And what else can happen to this team? What could possibly happen? And then Stéphane Matteau happened, and it was the greatest.
Sam, did you, on the final call, on the final call, though, on the Game 7 when we won, have you thought about that call? Or
Well, Game 7 with
Devils
the
was
Devils, Howie Rose
Rose made
has
that
the
call.
iconic call, just one of the greatest calls
Great
in
call.
broadcasting, Matteau, Matteau, Matteau. From our location, we saw Stéphane go around the net, and right at the top of the crease was Esa Tikkanen, and the stick is down on the ice. Matteau comes around the net, and I couldn't tell if Matteau scored or Tikkanen scored, so it was, they score. And, you know, then it was, we're in the finals. And it was just...
But on the Vancouver game, did you think about that call? Because that was a great call, too.
That was one...
And the waiting is over.
Where I thought about all the history, and every time the puck went down the ice and it looked like this was it, no more 1940 curses of icing.
Twice. Kevin
calls.
Collins was the linesman.
They clear it again, and I'm going, this is it. The Rangers are about icing. And they put half a second back on the clock. So now, finally, the face-off, and that was the waiting is over.
You know, you go back to...
And this one will last a lifetime because for us, that's what it meant.
No question.
We had spent a lifetime waiting for this moment.
The Game 6 of the Devils series, and it's not only was Mike Richter a great goaltender for the Rangers, he was one of the great goaltenders to ever play. Game 6, he gave the team a chance. And that's what you want from a goaltender.
We would have been dead without Richter.
Mike
in that
Richter
first
was
period.
outstanding, gave the team a chance.
That was his
and the
job.
team came through.
That was his job.
Hey, most coaches always go, that was his job.
And the timeout, though, did you say anything in that timeout, or was really?
I
'cause I know Mark had a lot of the speaking lines in the timeouts. It seemed to be.
Well, I didn't say a word, and Mark and I made eye contact, and he knew enough to take over. You know, you sit here and you as a coach, you don't want to miss any players. And, you know, I can tell you the whole lineup. I can tell you every guy that played in this team. The Black Aces, they were all in. A small example in the Garden. The two guys are sitting out there right now that were just role players on the team. Jay Wells and Greg Gilbert. Greg Gilbert got smoked between the benches. And Jay Wells comes across and beat the crap out of the guy. So but that's the building blocks of solidifying the group.
Well, thank you, guys. We're going to ask you one more thing. JD, one more comment. Yep.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can I just tell one story? We're just talking about the players and everybody associated. It's about the fans, too. And Al Troutwig told me a story that I've never forgotten, and it just hit me now. He used to come in from Long Island for the games, and he'd stop at a Greek deli all the time. And the folks that ran the deli, the family, were great, great Ranger fans who passed their tickets down generation to generation. And during the finals, the father passed away. And they had the ceremony and buried him and all that stuff. And when the Rangers won the cup, Al went in there, and they told him the story that when the father was buried in the casket, they had a pipe that came up above ground. And it had a cap on it.
No.
And after the series was won, and Mark Messier scored the game-winning Stanley Cup winning goal, the whole family went to the cemetery and took the cap off, and they all talked to their father and told him that the Rangers had won the cup in Game 7 against Vancouver on this certain date. Mark Messier scored the game-winning goal, and they sealed it up forever. One of the great. That's a Ranger fan right there.
All right, thank you. You guys are going to slide back here. There's a roving mic. And
Hey, don't forget about the Russians. The first Russians to win the Stanley Cup were first North American to win the Russian Cup.
Yeah.
Right there.
4 Russians.
hey, he just won the Russian Cup, by the way. The guy's a winner.
The first
Amazing.
4 Russians to win the Stanley Cup
Nemchinov's here,
Yeah.
played here, and the reverse happened with Sergei helping me out.
Another unsung hero, Sergey.
Exactly.
You're right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Joe Kosher, tough guy. We're all here.
We're not done. We're just getting started here. So thank you so much. And thanks for everybody. A couple people came a little late. Thank you for coming. We're going to bring up the core four, which Mark Messier needs no introduction, Mike Richter, Brian Leetch, and Adam Graves. And then we're going to get into the audience a little bit with some of the other players as well as we bring them in and ask them some questions about this unbelievable, magical year. So, guys, come on up.
Mark, you sit next to Brandon. No, you sit there.
Good to see you guys. Good job, guys. Nice job. I guess you guys are feeling fortunate you didn't get traded, but everybody was kind of.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it's an honor and a pleasure. You guys, besides the cup, which is always a standout, but you guys are such standouts off the ice. So it really, and that's what I think made the team so special, is that you guys were such influences on the community, the work you've done in New York. It's just amazing as I've gotten to know you guys. It's just amazing. So we got to start off with the captain. A lot of pressure, a lot of people questioning. I mean, certainly you've won the cup, but it was at Edmonton. What were you feeling going into that season? And what do you think were some of the highlights there at the beginning to get things started?
Yeah, it was an interesting first 3 years. We win the President's Trophy the first year, and we're on cloud nine, and of course losing the playoffs. But then the second year ran into some stumbling blocks and missed the playoffs. So I got to see that roller coaster of New York and what all it had to offer for athletes. And then of course, it's all good.
It's all good now.
Yeah. And so then going into the third year, hired Mike. As I mentioned, we went over to Europe, and speaking with Mike during the hiring, I got a real sense of mission about the possibilities of what was in front of us. Mike was very positive about our chances, what he could do with our team, and of course, I got firsthand of that being in the Canada Cups with Mike previous to him coming here, so I had some relationships with him. But I really got to see what was going to happen. It was a precursor in the French's Cup when we went over there, and we won it. But this is early in the season. We barely played a couple games, and he was coaching like it was the Stanley Cup Finals, and he was shortening the bench and changing goalies, and all this stuff was going on, and sure enough, we ended up grinding our way through that victory, and it was a perfect, it set the tone perfectly for the year because expectations were laid out very early on.
Brian, you were kind of certainly a cornerstone there. You had a great relationship with Mark. Tell us about that relationship. How much of an effect did Mark have on your game?
Yeah, I think, I've said it many times. I think Mark came at the right time for the three of us, Mike, Adam, and myself in our careers, and us wanting to be successful, and at that stage where you're trying to figure out the right way to prepare, the right way to get the best out of yourself, the right way to be a teammate, the best you can be. And Mark had gone through that. He'd gone through that learning curve in Edmonton with a lot of different players. Adam had played with him and won a Stanley Cup in Edmonton with him. And the fact that Mark, I was the only one living downtown at the time. Mark moved right in, carpooled together. We were roommates on the road. And Mark never would take you and say, this is how it's done. You know, he lived his life and the way he was as a captain and as a player by example, and the way he went about his activities every day and his interactions with other players. So it was just great timing for me. Our personalities meshed. And, I think the three of us, obviously, he was the biggest influence on my professional career at that time and throughout. And it was just lucky for me. He came at that time in my career.
Quick question on that little spin move with Brodeur, that goal. Something you had practiced? I mean, that was such a cool move. I was kind of watching a bunch of highlights and...
I had seen Doug Gilmour do that move in the playoffs. It was the previous year or 2 years before. And as a defenseman, you know, when you're in that position chasing a forward, you always think, don't let the net cut you off and get out of body position. And the fact he did that, you know, as a defenseman, I was like, wow, I wouldn't have been ready for that. And so I always just kept it in the back of my head. Garen had me cut off going to the net, and I said, this is the time to do it. I'd never tried it before. So I did it, and I remember seeing the puck go between Brodeur's legs. I said, I can't believe that just worked.
Is that what you thought?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Mike, I mean, did you ever think after game 5, you're down 3-2, you're going to New Jersey, was there a negative thought in your brain at all that maybe it's just not going to work out?
No, not really. You know, honestly, I can remember we were staying at a little hotel in Westchester, and that morning the door opened up. Mike Keenan's face right there. We just looked at each other, heading down to the bus, and just started laughing. You know, there's nothing else to say or do. Just go out and play. And we've been prepared for that, you know, the whole year and really all your life. We felt we were a better team. It's not a bad feeling to say, all right, you lost, but we haven't played our best yet. You know, we can play a little bit better. And we felt we just play our best and things will take care of itself. That's not to say that we wanted to be in that position, but you know, it's a great team you're playing. It's the second best team in the NHL that year, and they weren't going to give up an inch. So going into that, it was kind of exciting, and you know, you felt once you got through that game, you're very close to being eliminated. And you see that now with LA, you see that with the Rangers after being down those series. You're very tough to kill after that.
When you had Buka Boom and Leetch in front of you, was that kind of like a nice little comfortable feeling for you?
Oh, that was a very comfortable feeling. I hid long and hard behind those two. Quite literally with Book. No, look, these guys are just tremendous players. And as we said from the get-go, this is just a great family. Everybody played for each other. And they're all puzzle pieces. You know, Brian has such incredible skill at both ends of the ice. Book added this great sense of camaraderie and obvious physical presence. I mean, everybody was needed to win those games. It came down to one goal in the 7th game, and everybody doing their job. Book wasn't trying to be Brian. Brian wasn't trying to be Book. Everybody did their thing. And it was a joy playing behind those guys. And I think, you know, had I been able to move the puck a little better, Brian might still be playing.
Did you ever think, Adam, that at any point in the season, or at what point in the season did you think it all kind of came together? You said, wow, we got something special here.
Well, I think just certainly building off of where we were a couple years before that. And after Mike was named coach, I was over in the World Championships. And that was the first I knew of him. I only knew of Mike playing against his teams, and I know how hard they played. But certainly over that summer, and when Howie Wenger came in, and certainly getting ready to play the type of game and that upbeat type of game, and certainly the change in practices where everything was at full speed. And I knew that with the leadership that we had, of course, and the team that we had, and the way we started, and the Garden became a place that you didn't want to come into. I think in that particular season we went 16 games at the Garden, but in a lot of those games, and I said that from the start of the season, we won those games in the first 10 minutes of the game because we'd be up by 1 or 2 goals, and we'd overwhelm the other team and get them back on their heels. And I think as you grow, there's adversity in any season, and I think that we always found a way to endure through that adversity and come out on top. And it was one of those things where it wasn't just 1 or 2 guys. It was collectively as a group, and I think as we grew as a group, that was as close a team as I've ever played on, and I think it starts there, and you feel it now after all this time coming back. Although we look at each other and we look maybe a little bit older, you don't miss a beat, and it takes you right back to the last time you saw each other, and that's a special part.
Mark, some of the unsung heroes on that team, like Alexei Kovalov, like how great was it playing? You know, that was obviously a great player, but you got a really young Alexei Kovalov. Who are some of the unsung heroes, and what are components that maybe?
I think you can go down the lineup. You know, obviously, as Gravy just said, it was collectively we were a very balanced team. We had a little bit of everything. We could beat you in the alleys and we could beat you in the streets, and that's always a nice feeling.
I like that.
So I think, and more importantly, we had players that really understood the roles on the team. And there was never, on a championship team, everybody understands that the simple way to break it down is we're in this to win the Stanley Cup. And the guys that are there for a reason there is because they understand what they can contribute and how they can contribute. On another team, it might be completely different, but on this team, this is what we need you to do. And so if you look at, our role players from Mike Hudson to Greg Gilbert to Jay Wells to Dougie Lidster, never even played a game and came in late. Craig McTavish, our role players were, at times, were Glenn Anderson. Glenn Anderson's a superstar, a Hall of Famer, and he's playing a role on our team. But that's a difference of a guy like that coming to the team, to our team at that particular time in his career. He understood this is what he needed to do for us. So if you start with that attitude there and you see a Hall of Famer playing that, I mean, that's a pretty good indication to everybody else on the team that maybe they should be thinking along the same kind of lines.
Coach, some unusual, inspirational, motivational tactics through the year? Anything that you want to, because you hear all these different stories about things that you would do in practice or during a game or in between, and we have some time, right? So, I mean, is there anything he had done that was kind of a little unusual, a little different?
I'll bring one up that he did. Alexei Kovalov.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
How about Alexei Kovalov when he had that 6 or 7 minute shift and he kept coming to the bench and you looked at him back on the bench and made him stay on the ice? I've never asked you about that one.
Well, the best part about that was that Alex thought he was getting rewarded. And then at the end of the 10-minute shifter, he ended up scoring a goal there, and he came back all smiles, and Mike was going, "What am I going to do?" I can say one thing about Mike though is Mike had the ability to keep everybody's attention, and if a coach has one attribute that's important, that's it. And when you came to the rink or came to practice, you knew you better be on and alert and ready to go. And our team was ready to play. We were conditioned, we were prepared, and he made sure of that. And listen, there's a lot of guys that are great coaches. If you look at that year and our team, the way it's composed and everything else, is there another guy that could have done the same thing? I'm not so sure. Eddie Olczyk, exactly. Geez, Glenn Healy. I mean,
Mike, anything you want to add to this or agree on the coaching inspirational part? Or?
Well, I would say this. Our practices were incredibly intense, and we felt we had a great team, but we also felt like going into a game, sometimes the games would be easier than the practices, and that's a good place to be. We were very, very prepared.
And I would add to that, where you knew that your first couple of shifts, you better be ready to go. Whether it's run someone over, get the puck out, or you don't want to have a bad first shift. And I honestly think that in a lot of games, we won the games in the first period because we were so ready to go. The other team was overwhelmed. I really do.
Mike, what was going on in your head during that Boré save? Were you a little nervous?
No, what was going on in my head was getting teak out of my ear. The play came down. I didn't think it was necessarily the penalty shot was going to be called, but then it is. And Teek's over there going, he's really fast. I'm like, oh, Pat Boré? Play with this guy in Finland or something? I haven't heard of him. The game's going on. You've done it a lot, so you just want to be left to your own. And he's talking. I think Zuby or someone finally grabbed him, and just pulled him to the bench. He goes high, he goes low, he goes around. Just so. And Boré was so good in that series. I mean, he scored a lot of goals, and he ran out of room on that one. He came so close, and that's what you try to do when you're a kid. You don't say, hey, it's mid-February and it's a game that doesn't matter. You pretend to be in the Stanley Cup Finals on a breakaway, and I was lucky enough to be in that position.
How do you think your team would do against the current Rangers? You guys are I almost feel like you guys were similar.
I think we'd be tired.
In the energy. Would it be an even playing field? Would you guys be able to beat the current Rangers at the run they're having now? Do you guys think you were one of those kind of teams who could beat anybody?
Yeah, I do. I think they
I
do.
think what Mark said, though, is we could beat you a lot of ways. And it's so hard. Leetchy's always said that because he's compared to Bobby Orr so many times. And he said, how can you compare different errors? And it's maybe impossible. It was so long ago. But that is one thing that our team had, was we had speed, we had toughness, we had grit, we played great team D. So, you know, when you have a lot of, you know, ways of winning, you'll find ways of winning.
Superstition. A lot of superstition with Blue Faithful. Give me some of them that happen. I mean, what's some of the superstitions with their songs, music, things you do before the game in the locker room?
Well, I wasn't a super superstitious guy, but I kind of relied more on routine than superstitions. But we did have some good times and some good music playing, and Eddie Olczyk would lead a stretch in the mornings that we could sit around. It was almost like coffee talk. It became kind of, I can't remember who started it, but before every practice, I think Mike might have even brought it in, but before every practice, we would sit in the dressing room itself there and have a 10-minute stretch. And it was a great time to kind of collectively come together, and funny stories would be being told, but it was just another example of a way to kind of bring the team together. So that became almost a ritual for us to spend that 10 minutes every day together to really kind of, you know, get all the distractions out of the way and get ourselves focused and tuned into each other and the team and all that kind of things. But I was more routine than superstitious.
Brian, you have any superstitions there?
No,
Besides
I've
wearing
seen
the
some
same
guys
equipment?
get so wrapped up in superstition. I mean, they're worn out before the game starts. Their laces got to be one way. The tape's got to be. They're retaping their pads, retying their skates. Their stick, they didn't tape it right. They take it all off. I'm like, geez, I'm tired watching this. You know? So that no, I mean, we'd try and, like Mark said, get to the rink about the same time. If we didn't, it was no big deal, you know. Have similar things to eat, but then you'd switch that up. So there was nothing that, when I went into a game, if it wasn't the same part of the routine, I was worried about.
You did wear all your same equipment since high school.
Yeah.
I didn't like breaking in new equipment, that's true. But I wore new equipment in practice, so the next year I was ready to switch into new equipment for the next
You're a
year.
little crazy when it comes to like shoulder pads and some of that other stuff. You weren't that big on switching that up.
Well, if I got hit somewhere and there was no padding and it hurt, I'd put a pad on it.
How do you compare this team? You played on a couple Stanley Cup teams. You played on an Oilers one. Was it the same kind of vibe, or what was the difference?
Well, I just have to add to this just a little bit,
Yeah.
though, because the one thing that resonates with all of us is how much fun we had playing the game that year. And we talk about those stretches. That might have been the funniest 10 minutes of everyone's day every day. When we talk about having kippers dancing around the dressing room, singing Brandy to everyone, to Heels, one of the funniest men to ever play the game, and of course Mike. And
Why was Healy so funny? What was
well, Heels,
Look at him.
He's just a funny guy. But that group of guys, there was really a lot of sharp tongues and guys that had a great sense of humor, and you didn't want to be late for a stretch, not because you were worried about being late, you just didn't want to miss anything, because it was so much
And
fun.
Gravy and I sat next to each other, and we wouldn't say a word. We just look at each other, shaking our head, because guys couldn't be quiet. We had a group of them that would just talk the whole time and bring someone else into it. So there'd be guys coming in that wouldn't say much, and Nemchinov was like you and I, Gravy, you know, we'd bring him in. Sarge would be like, oh, he'd put his head down. Just shake. He'd look at Ricky and go, oh, Ricky. Oh, Ricky.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, Heels had such a good delivery. If I had something stupid to say, I'd whisper it to him. He'd throw it out there. Place would explode. So he's doing the right thing now. He's a great man. Just yap, yap, yap all day long. It was fun to be around.
I was going to ask you on going back to the devil thing on the guarantee. I've asked you about this, but you regret doing that? I mean, was that something that you thought a bunch about, or just kind of?
Well, I woke up in the morning, I saw it splash on the front page, I kind of said, wow, this is going to be interesting. Can we redo this? No, honestly, the intention, and I've told the story, I'm sure everybody here has heard it over 20 years a number of times, but the intention was to show the confidence that I've had in the team all year long, and that to know that in my heart of hearts, as Ricky had mentioned, that we really believed we could go in there and win that game. And I think we all did really believe it, but as a captain, you're always monitoring the psyche of your team and the confidence level of your team, not only as a group, but as individuals, and making sure everybody's okay. And in that regard. And it was just one of those times where we had lost momentum. We weren't playing poorly, but we were playing against a team that was playing unbelievable. And we needed to find a way to raise our level of play. And I believed we could, and I believe we had the talent, and I believe we had the heart and courage to do that. And it was just a way to kind of, you know, that last minute kind of, come on, we can do this kind of thing. And fortunately enough, Ricky saved us to put us in the position.
Between the first and second period, you go in the locker room. Do you say anything? Were you a talker in between periods?
Yeah, I think, you know, but, you know, we expected, and I think in a championship team, everybody's expected to lead. Everybody's encouraged to lead. Everybody's expected to talk and to say. I remember Jay Wells standing up in the middle of the dressing room and slamming his stick against the middle Gatorade table, and Gatorade flying everywhere. And so everybody had their moments of that they needed to exert their presence or their ideas. But you know, I think at that particular time, the talking was basically done. We needed to find a way to execute. It was about execution at that point. And again, we knew the Devils were going to come out and push hard early. We needed to kind of survive it, and sure enough, they did. We thanks to Mike, we got through it to the best of our abilities until Kovalov scored that game-changing goal at the end of the second period there to change the psyche and the momentum completely around. It became, now we're the hunted. They tried to hang on, and the tables turned, and we were the aggressors, and we were able to change the tide of that game.
We have Matteau here. Is Matteau here?
Yeah, he's here.
Stefan, do you have a microphone over there by chance? I just got to ask you what was going on during that period when you scored that goal. There you are.
What's your question?
What were you thinking? I mean, were you thinking that wraparound was the way to go? Did you have that in your mind all the way, or what was going on in your mind during that?
Well, before I scored, everybody knows I had a routine. I always put my left skate first, my right skate first, and I was one of those nervous people around the dressing room. So I was in the dressing room alone, and I was alone with Eddie Olczyk, and he touched my stick for Game 3 when I scored the second overtime. And I was alone with him also in the 7th game. So I asked Eddie, I said, Eddie, please, can you touch my stick again? And sure, Matty. So he started touching my stick, kissed it. I think he did a little dance with it. And I thought it was pretty cool. That was a dramatic moment, but at the same time, we had a little fun moment. So just before I left, I made the corner to go back on the ice. I said, I'll be back in 5 minutes with the winning goal. So pretty cocky at the time, but it was, sure enough, I lied. It was like 6 minutes later. So, so it was...
Love that.
But if I planned a wraparound, of course not. Whoever watched the tape, I watched it a few times the last 20 years, that I must have get hooked like 3 times by Niedermayer. So I didn't plan to do anything. I just, all right, they hooked me. He's hooking me right now. I'm gonna put the puck in front. And I thought Tikkanen scored, which at the time I didn't care, because I'm going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I give the chance to the team to win the Stanley Cup. So, but I'm glad I did so 20 years later.
Thank you. A quick question for Bukaboom. For Jeff Bukaboom. Jeff, while we have you, you're Brian's defensive mate, basically covering for all his. What was it like playing with Brian? And obviously, he was the risk taker. You, though, was the one. It was on, with the 2-on-1s and everything else.
Well, he had to be a risk taker. He had to play with me. So, well, what can I say about these guys and the guys up there? It was the time of our lives. Being in New York, being the toast of the town. Obviously, the Knicks were going through their run at the same time. But, the emotions that you look back upon this dream or season of ours is special, and it's special to be able to share with everyone, obviously, in this room and past this room. And, you know, Mark and I have been through so much, hockey-wise and off the ice. I got hired coach in Hartford, and I was telling Mark this story, and I go into Hartford to look for a house, and they put me up in this hotel at the Hilton. And I was telling Andy about this story the other day, and I remember Andy and Mess, for some reason, weren't getting along that year very well in Edmonton, and me and Kevin were roommates, and one night around midnight, the door comes flying open, Mark comes in, and he's giggling, and he picks up Kevin in his bed and throws it over against a wall with Kevin in it. And then next thing you know, him and Andy are wrestling, and before you know it, they're fighting all the way down the hall. But that's the way we were. Like, 1 minute we were just beating on each other. I remember Andy got mad at me once in a while in practice. He called me a big dumb farmer for hitting him with a shot or something. But you know, and then there's Andy causing the crap in the corner. I have to go in and stick up for him, but I'd do it 100 times and do it another 100 times if I could for him. That's just the way we were. And all these guys, like you said, you know, we went through the hockey wars together, and it was pretty special.
Thank you. Jeff Bookaboom. Yeah, I love him. Back to you, Mike, for a second. Did you ever think, after, you know, that little goal trickled in at the end of the game 7 against the Devils, did you think, no biggie, we'll get it back in overtime, or was that, what was your mindset there?
I think I was
I just remember the Garden was just stunned.
Yeah, we were kind of stunned.
Ask the referee what he felt.
Yeah, I think I was trying to
Did you feel that was the right thing? Were you interfered with, or?
No, I was just mad I let in a goal. So I was yelling at the ref. What happened was, right before that, the game's winding down, and I made a save and tried to play it, and it was a very quick whistle, which is significant because now they get another stoppage of play, face off in our zone, and they can set up. And the next time I got possession of the puck was when Zelapukin had it out front. Pass came careening out from the corner. I made a save. I thought it was under the pad. I thought it was out of the ref's view. Whack once, whack twice. It seemed like forever that he waited to blow the whistle. And then, of course, it comes loose and he puts it in. I'm thinking, you know, one or the other. It's either a slower whistle in the beginning, more time gets off, or do a quick whistle when you miss it, or, you know, when you don't see it anymore. So, you know, that was my explanation, but I was just upset it went in. I did think that I had the puck in my own possession, and I thought the ref would have blown the whistle as consistently as the first time he would have blown it. But, you know, that magnificent goal by Leetchy, 1-0, Game 7 shutout is all gone. The big thing is the momentum just shifted, and now, you know, the Devils have a quiet arena. We don't know what we're doing, and we walk in the locker room, and there's broken sticks and everything else, and there's, as Mark said, there's no speeches to be given now. You just have to go out and play, but it's a big, you have to turn that 180 right now. And I remember one thing that was said, Kevin Lowe, who was just, you know, just an incredible professional, and he'd been through so many wars in Edmonton. You know, nobody's saying a word, and we are all stunned, just as the Garden is. And he said, hey, man, if it wasn't hard, it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't be worth it if it wasn't so hard. Let's go out and win. And he was just like he said, high risk, high reward. Let's go out there and play. And I just thought it was, he took it in stride, and maybe it just helped us a little bit, but it felt good going out there, and lasted a little while longer until Steph ended it. But, you know, you look back, and maybe you wouldn't have it any other way because it makes it more special. It was that much of a grind. It was a pretty momentous game. It was pretty cool to be a part of.
Definitely one of the more emotional sporting event moments.
Sure, yeah.
You know, we were just all so ready to celebrate. And it's got, I mean, I just remember you couldn't hear a word in the Garden. The quietest I've ever heard it. Joey Costa's here?
Yep.
Joey Costa, 4 Stanley Cups, 4. 3 with the other guys. Joey, congratulations.
Sorry, I missed the dress code.
Joe, first of all, you look like you can play right now. I'm not going to lie. You look in unbelievable shape. It's great shape.
Pretty dark out there.
It's the black clothes that will do it. But Joe, how does this compare to the 3 Stanley Cups you played with? What does this team mean to you? And you're obviously the enforcer.
Well, I'll tell you what, I got here I guess in 1991, I came to the trade deadline, and we didn't have that much success, but it was the following year we picked up Mark. And winning is all about leadership. And I recall that when we got Mark, it was right around Halloween. And Mark wanted to make sure that everybody felt at home. He wanted to make sure the wives all got together, and we had a nice Halloween party. And Mesh shows up in a Halloween party wearing a fig leaf. And he was wearing a belt with 2 bottles of tequila in each corner, carrying glasses. And he wanted to make sure that the wives felt at home with him and with the team. So he proceeded to do shots with all the wives and all the players that night. And as you know, he spent the night in the city. Well, the next morning, he jumps in a cab to come to practice, tells the cab driver to take him to the rink. He falls asleep in the cab. 2 hours later after practice, he calls the rink. He missed practice because he didn't know where to go. But the point was, we needed a leader, and he came in. He wanted... He wanted to make sure
see
that
the connection there with the leadership and the drinking tequila, but
no, the wives and the players and everyone got along, and he just made sure that happened.
all right. Sergei Nemchinov is here in the house. Yeah. Sergei. Sergei, I mean, first of all, you're one of the, I remember picking you up to do an appearance, you and Alexei, and you came out, I had a rent-a-car at the time, you came out and before getting in the car, you walked around the entire car, you're like, nice car. It was like, Oldsmobile rent-a-car. Like, boy, he's new to the country. I mean, just to kind of set the tone, I mean, right, we made $1,000 that day, and it was a whole day, and you thought it was the best thing, we ever did. But so the whole thing was new to you. What was that experience like? I mean, you were one of the first Russian players to win the cup. What was that experience like?
Of course, it was great. It wasn't reason that we were first 2 Russian players to win the Stanley Cup. It was we had a great team in '94, and as the guy said before, we came together right at the right time, and. Of course, it was special. I remember when Mike called us, 4 of us. I think, Mike, before Game 7, or Game 6, he called us in your coaching room and start to telling us that you Russians, you don't need about the Stanley Cup. You don't worry about this cup. You only think about Olympics and championships. we were standing, 4 of us, like. Yeah. Yes. No, of course, it wasn't true. It wasn't true. We were care, and of course we want to win, and we won.
And hey, you had mentioned Karpasov before. How and obviously we're missing him today of an unfortunate plane crash. But Zubov was another. Really, really solid defenseman. It's hard, we have a Brian Leetch and a Bukaboom, but Zubov was another big factor on the power play, especially. Mark, was he?
Well, Zuby is one of those special talents, and that you just are rare to find. A right-handed shot defenseman, and we all knew what Brian could do and what he had done and what he was going to do, but all of a sudden we see Sergei Zubov emerging as this incredible talent on our team. I think he might have led the team in scoring that year.
Yeah, the only defenseman to lead it.
Yeah. We know we got Brian to work our power play, and then you kind of try to fit anybody in there. All of a sudden, Sergei Zubov just emerges as this amazing, amazing talent that could really play the game at any pace that he wanted to, control the game, vision, strong on the puck, shoot the puck, and it's very rare that you need a guy like Brian to win the Stanley Cup, but very rarely do you have 2 guys like that on a Stanley Cup team. Think about now, if you got 2 guys like Brian and Zubov on the it was incredible to see him emerge with his talent that year, and what a tandem Kevin and him became to back up Book and Brian.
We'll take a quick parting shot. So everybody get a last minute, anything you want to talk about that maybe the team or something that happened. We'll start with the coach.
Well, it's not a parting shot, it's just appreciation to have the pleasure and opportunity, along with our coaching staff, Coley Campbell, Dick Todd, and the support staff, to be able to work with athletes of this caliber and athletes so dedicated. To win a championship, you have to have every single individual accept their role and be all in all the time. And that takes great commitment and sacrifices by the players and their families. It's not an easy journey. It's the most difficult trophy to win. And our players were dedicated from day one to doing that. And it was a pleasure to be a part of them. And certainly is an experience that will live with us forever. And I appreciate all the players in terms of what they meant to each other and how they cared and loved each other. That's what it takes. That makes the difference. And their friendships remain intact today, the entire group. And that's why they won the Stanley Cup.
A quick Mike Keenan story. We were on a fishing trip. Mark had a fishing tournament somewhere like really far away up in Alaska. So Mike was my roommate. So I'm about to get ready to go to bed, and I had a good day. Nothing great. It was with Mark's dad. We were fishing great. He was teaching me how to fish, really. And I said, Mike, you realize, I think he was coach of Vancouver, I said, your team is 175 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. Like, nobody believes you're going to win. So he's kind of, so I said, I'm going to go to bed. You getting up early? He goes, I'm going to sleep in. So I said, I'm not sleeping in. I'll be up really early. I'm going to go win the money. So about 5 minutes later, he goes, Brandon, you sure it was 175 to 1? And then Mike, on his way out that morning, about a half hour before I went up, said, Brandon, I'll catch you out on the docks. I'm going to win the money. I said, this is a competitive guy. I love this guy. And just, the competitive spirit. I mean, that was one of my more fun times. I was picking his brain about competition, and you could see how he's just relentless on never, you reach your goals. One of Mike's big things is re-upping the goals. And that was his big thing. It's like, get your players to reaching the goals. Only part of it, get them to re-up their goals is one of the bigger parts of it. So I appreciate that experience with you, Mike. Thank you. That was fun. 175 to 1, boy. Bob?
Yeah, I had the benefit of being president of the Garden at that time, but more importantly, I was a Ranger fan my whole life, and I understood the difficulty, the frustration, the pain that the Ranger fan went through. I mean, even with 0.6 of a second to go, I was pretty sure we were going to lose that game. But there was so much.
That's cool.
That's a Ranger fan for you, right? That's what we went through, right? But there was so much on the ice that year, and so much behind the scenes, and difficult aspects of it. But I believe all of that had to happen that particular year for us to win and win the Cup. It's unfortunate we couldn't have had it continue, but I believe somebody said, would you go through it again? I would say, absolutely, I would go through it again. And knowing all the hardship, but it was all worth it. And you had an incredible organization, incredible general manager, players, everybody worked together as a team, and the problems were dealt with behind the ice, but the team went out and performed on the ice. And I think it was the complete representation of what it was to win a Cup for the unbelievable fan base that the Rangers had for many, many years. So
there's nothing like the Garden.
Marvelous journey. Yeah, no, they're the best.
They're
the best. I do remember one guy saying to me though, he said, Bob, if we win a Cup, I'm never coming back. And I said, well, what's my incentive? I'm still trying to run a business here. So, marvelous year, great players.
John?
Well, we as a player playing in New York, you learn about how much it means to the fans. In '79, we played, didn't win, but we got to the finals, and it was a marvelous run. And it still sticks with me that we didn't win as a player. I'd like to thank Brandon for getting this group together and for including myself, and I'm sure Sam will say the same thing, to be just a part of this thing for a couple of days. It really means a lot. The 94 team that won needed something, and it all started when they made the deal for Mark. And that's just the truth, because you have to be able to stare adversity in the eye, especially in New York, to be able to win. And we didn't do it in '79. It had been a long time before the Rangers did, and it started with Mark. And every player on that team knew their seat on the bus. And when you know your seat on the bus, you're doing your part, and you stick up for each other, and you pull for each other. That was one of the greatest years of my life, being a broadcaster of the New York Rangers. And I can still remember those last damn icings, Sam. My leg was going. I couldn't stop my leg. It was just going. And finally they won, and I sat back and just watched. Now, if you ever take a chance, and you'll see dedication of players, look at the photo of when the buzzer sounded and the players are jumping in the air. Steve Larmer is back in the corner, and he's pinning his opposition player, the Canuck player, against the glass. Meanwhile, they're celebrating, and he's still got him pinned against the glass because he wanted to make sure that his guy wasn't going to score. So again, Brandon, thanks for bringing myself and my wife here. That was a year of a lifetime. It really was. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Sam.
It was a tremendous year, but I think these athletes, and you see the great people they are, they captured the city. And the thing I remember we didn't get into was the victory parade. The outpouring of love from the city of New York, and it really started as soon as the game ended. The Garden crowd was amazing. Out in the street, people poured out in the street. We were up all night, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. The city of New York embraces its teams like no other, and this team showed love for the city and how much it meant to win in New York, and the city just poured out its love in that victory parade on the 17th of June. But to be around these great athletes and to be part of that year was just a wonderful, wonderful time for me and my family. And I thank the guys for that great, great year.
Mike?
Well, something that stuck with me after we won, Mark had said, I think it might have been the morning of the parade, we'd have a meeting, you have a picture with the cup and a bunch of things. He said, hey guys, just make sure you take care of the stick guys and the locker room attendants and everybody that's associated with this, because you're pretty full of yourself. You just won and you're up late a few nights, so you might have a few things slip through the cracks. And he said, Mark had been through this a few times himself. He said, make sure let's make sure they're taken care of. They're as much a part of this victory as every single one of you here. And I thought that was so impressive to hear, but I think thinking back on that, even years later, it's very, very true about this team. I mean, I could stay here all night and listen to this, but I mean, these guys, they're all our family now. And I think of the first day I met Sergei and his wife, and everybody had a role to play. Everybody had a role to play, from the guy that was, giving you a sandwich coming into the Garden to, the best player on the team. Everybody contributed some way to that victory, including, of course, the fans. But I just think of all those little puzzle pieces, all the cliches that you always talk about with a team. This team had it. Everybody contributed that. Those funny times that we had in the locker room stretching mattered. And that's what I remember, is everybody now is, such great friends, but they all contributed one way or another. And it was just awesome to be part of.
Gravy?
Much like everyone else, I just think about the friendships and thinking about this weekend and looking forward to seeing everyone, because unfortunately everyone is all over the globe and with families, and to get back together, and that's when you have that bond. And I can remember when Mark's was many occasions said, when you accomplish something like that you walk together forever, and it takes you right back to that moment. and it's everyone. I look over my shoulders and people that are part of the family, and it wouldn't be, this wouldn't be a celebration without everyone here, and certainly the way we were treated as an organization, as a team, and continue to be treated on a daily basis, and reminded of how lucky we were to wear that uniform and play on Garden Ice, all of us. It's a constant reminder of the privilege of being a Ranger.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, I guess just for me, I just feel really very grateful. You know, you go to school, you play hockey because it's fun, you do it with your friends, and all of a sudden you get drafted by an original 6 team. I grew up in Connecticut, and I get drafted by the Rangers. They give you money to go play, you don't have to go to school. And I played 18 years in the league, and I played with a lot of great guys, like a lot of friends, a lot of fun experiences. I made it to one final, and it was with these guys in the room, and we were able to do that together. And so that group that stands out, you know, to me, and everything we went through to get to that point, and then the satisfaction of really sharing that amongst a group, and then watching the city celebrate, and the Ranger fans. And I know Mike and I used to talk about, we didn't really look at the pressure, because a lot of teams had, like JD said, had not quite been able to do that before in New York. And we'd say, wow, what a great opportunity we have. You know, imagine if we can do this. And so to be a part of that team that was able to bring a championship to New York, and to share it with the group of guys we had, was just, I feel very grateful to do that here in New York City with the original 6 fan base like this. Tremendous.
I've been trying to figure out a way to articulate all this for 20 years, and I still can't do it. The complexities are incredible of what it takes, and there's an old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. To win a Stanley Cup the way we did, it obviously took a tremendous amount of people to be involved. Not only from the organization, but outside. And if you just look behind us, could we have won the Stanley Cup without JD? Maybe not. Could we have won it without Sam? Could we have won it without anybody? Maybe not. Maybe because the frequency would have been changed. I mean, it gets to be that fine-tuned of everybody being involved on a day-to-day basis and living together. And then you bring in the momentum from the fans and from the incredible generations of people around it to come in and really kind of understand what the team is trying to accomplish. And collectively, you build momentum. And I think what everybody's trying to articulate here, and as Joey so eloquently did, maybe a little unconventional, I think what we're trying to say is that you can't do this without creating a culture. And there's a great saying there that culture before strategy. You can have all the strategy, you can have all the talks, you can have all the leadership, but if you don't create culture, none of it matters. And I think what happened that particular year is that we nailed culture. And I think the fans understood it, the team understood it, and everything else blossomed because of it. And here we sit 20 years later, still trying to tell the story, and so many different stories, and it's forever. It's forever, and thank you all for your part that you played in it, because without you, we probably couldn't have done it either. So here we are.
Couple things. There are some people streaming in, watching us through Facebook or SteinerSports.com or even 92nd Street Y for sure. First of all, thank you to 92nd Street Y. Did a great job. And all the Steiner staff as well that put all this together, thank you. I just wanted to say, when we started Steiner Collectibles was in '95. And I was on a train. I had that picture of Mark, that stupid grin he had. That I was like, how does a guy look that happy? He had that incredible happy look. And one of the things I've learned from Mark is, is the importance of celebrating, when you do something great or as a team and you accomplish. And we started our collectible company with a '94 team. That's why it's such an important team to me. And the love really for these guys is they really got us started. And Mark was like our first spokesman. We were chasing Mike down, signing goalie mask in his apartment, which had no air conditioning. A little different. But, you know, Brian and Graves, like all you guys were just so big supporters of getting our company started. And a lot of people think that we kind of got started with the Yankees or this. We started with the Rangers. And I just figured, I don't know if it was going to work. No one was doing it. But I knew there was 17,500 fans that would be with me on trying to create these really cool collectibles. And so thank you for that. Appreciate it. Last closing thing. You go to SteinerSports.com. Matty Loughlin, we're just raising some money. He was the operations manager for the Rangers, did all the work for these guys through and through. We're going to be doing a little auction for him, and you'll see some stuff added on as the week progresses. If you want to kind of bid on some of that, it's appreciated.
Quick story about
Sure,
Matty?
sure.
Matt Loughlin was one of our favorite guys. And you talk about guys pulling on the rope and playing huge roles. Behind the scene kind of guy, but took care of everybody literally. An amazing guy. We thought so much of Matty that we all collectively got together and bought him a Mercedes-Benz to thank him for all the things that he had done with us. He's fallen ill. He's come down with throat cancer of some sort that's not very good. And part of this reunion today is going to be reach out to him and help him out for all the things that he did for us over the years there. So just a quick story about a great guy and a great big part of our championship season.
So if you check on the website, we'll be adding some stuff on, trying to raise some money over the next couple weeks. We're very grateful for you to come out tonight. Thank you for all the Rangers, all the players, and thank you also for participating. And we look forward to seeing you again. We'll hopefully be doing something, well, Mark is with us.
Let's go.
In about 5 years, we'll be back for the 25th. And I'm hoping we can continue this run in about an hour.
Yeah. Woo!